We all know it's never polite to discuss a woman's age, except when talking about this next grand dame. She's one of Australia's leading ladies. Funny, ever present and not afraid to make a few waves. It's the Australian Women's Weekly and she's turning 90.
And we wouldn't be the same without the weekly. How could a woman keep up with the world?
I think it's Australian women.
And that as a result, Australia is also at war.
I have much pleasure in declaring the Sydney Opera House.
When you say the Australian Women's Weekly, you know exactly what that means.
A week without the weekly's not the same.
From history to tragedy.
Dingo's got my baby.
Survival.
They've suddenly realised right here, they know that it's out.
And scandal.
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
She's been there every step of the way.
Weekly told stories that would never have been told if that magazine didn't exist.
She's a bit like your favourite auntie.
The Australian Women's Weekly, hot off the press in June 1933, part of Sir Frank Packer's plan to give women what they wanted, their own window on the world. Our story unfolding on its pages.
In 1933, and The Business Girl.
It's incredible, isn't it?
So this is one of the first covers.
It's about 6 months in.
And she's working.
She is, which is progressive for the time, obviously, a working woman. But as you can see, she's still bringing a touch of the home to the office, as it's put here. She's got her cups of tea.
The powerful Powder Puff Revolution, a black and white newspaper at every woman's fingertips every week for tuppence. It was the calm before the storm. World War II, women in the Weekly joining the fight.
I guess you wouldn't have seen this 5 years before, would you? Astride a motorcycle.
Yeah, you wouldn't. It was very interesting. This wasn't representative of the other media at the time. Really a powerful symbol, I think, of what the Weekly represented at the time.
Yeah, she looks like a boss.
Doesn't she?
Just like the Weekly's war correspondent Dorothy Drain, sent to Japan and Vietnam, setting a serious undertone, a framework still followed by Nicole Byers, the current editor of the magazine.
It's important to stand on the right side of history for these big moments and to be there, I guess informing women and giving them the right to make the right decisions.
From the rationing of war to the lush feminine fashion of the 50s when Australia came into its own.
By now, the Australian Women's Weekly was in every house in the country. It shaped the clothes we wore, the food we ate, the books we read, even the men we married. But the world was about to see massive change, and so was the Weekly.
A modern supermarket supplies all the housewives' needs.
Women were demanding more, exploring crazy new designs and dishes, some best left in the archives.
So you're not going to bring back the jellied veal loaf?
I don't think we're never going to bring back the jellied veal loaf, absolutely not.
The Weekly is as Aussie as Paul Hogan.
It's all there this week in the Weekly. The Australian Woman. Is it the Woman's Weekly or the Women's Weekly? Woman's Weekly. It's all there in the Australian Woman's Weekly. No, I know Ida Butler, she's going to kill me.
There's the Israeli army dive that Malcolm Fraser tried.
Ita Buttrose transformed the magazine into a glossy monthly.
Read what to do when your child says, "I'm scared, Mummy."
It was one of Australia's icons.
Editor of the 90s, Nini King,
The Princess,
says Princess Diana was a never-fail cover girl.
Dunny, it didn't matter what you did on any of the magazines. If you put her on the cover, it went through the roof.
Australians loved everything she did. The Weekly shared the pattern for Diana's Australian-made koala sweater, still a family treasure for Adam Powell.
I've had these in our family since 1982, I think it is. So they were originally made by my Gran June, and then my mum wore the original.
And we can't forget the cakes. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
And now you're part of Australian cultural history.
Agnes Lee is the creator of the now world-famous duck cake with its iconic chiplets.
Here's your duck cake, mate. I did my best.
So I'm imagining that a lot of parents were cursing you in their mind because you made the hardest cakes.
I never knew that it would be the hardest because I just thought of it and then they say, no, it's not that complicated.
Woven amongst the recipes and patterns a progressive agenda, the contraceptive pill, the Indigenous vote, IVF.
He was always pushing the boundaries. Divorce, being able to go back to work after a pregnancy, be able to work through a pregnancy. Marriage equality was a debate during my time as editor, and you would just lay out the facts.
Former editor Helen McCabe from Future Women even saw knitting become a political bombshell.
For me personally, it was certainly not an ideal situation to be seen to be undermining the first female Prime Minister that this country has ever had.
And Deborah Hutton, bearing all at 50, fired up Australia.
There was quite a few readers who stopped their subscriptions. One of the best comments I got was, "It looks like they've photoshopped your face on someone else's body." And I thought, well, if we would have done that, I would have got someone with bigger
Together with Maggie Tabara,
Now the Women's Weekly is published.
Deborah Hutton is Australian Women's Weekly royalty.
I've lived my life through it in a way. I mean, I think my first cover was back in the very late 80s. But, you know, through family tragedies and highs and lows, the weekly's always been there.
This 90-year-old is not stopping now. More than 1 million Australians still grab a copy each month.
I think we should raise a glass to her.
She's the story of us.
It knew its audience, it respected its audience, it never spoke down to it, and in return, that audience trusted it.
Is there life in the old girl yet? Will we see her turn 100?
Absolutely, we will be celebrating the Women's Weekly's 100th anniversary, I can guarantee you that.
We wouldn't be the same.
Women's Weekly, long may she reign.
A week without the weekly's not the same.
And I am yet to nail any of those birthday cakes. That was just gorgeous, and a big happy birthday, Women's Weekly.